All right, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I have Ashley Holdridge here from Mitchell College, which is located not too far away in Connecticut, New London, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Mitchell College?
Sure. So my name is Ashley Holdridge. I'm an admissions counselor here at Mitchell. I'm also an alumni of Mitchell. I studied sports management. I graduated in 2021. I chose Mitchell because of the small campus atmosphere. I was also recruited for volleyball at the time. But kind of in my process of being a student, I decided that maybe stepping back from being an athlete was the best decision for myself. I still was involved in athletics in the regard that I was a manager for the basketball team for 3 years. I actually still assistant coach with them now, and I have gotten an opportunity to assistant coach with the baseball team. So I have many different hats at Mitchell, so I kind of know a little bit about everything, not only as a student's perspective, but also as an employee's perspective.
Okay, great. What division athletics do they have there?
Division three. So right now, this year, we're in the NECC conference, which is the New England Collegiate Conference. And then next year, we're going to be moving to the GNAC conference, which is the Greater Northeast Athletic Conference.
All right, awesome. That's exciting. What's your favorite aspect about the campus? It sounds like you said you obviously have a bunch of different roles. What's your favorite part of Mitchell College campus?
My favorite part of Mitchell's campus is that even though we're such a small school, we're just over 500 students in enrollment, we have a very tight-knit family atmosphere. So, for example, if you have a class where our classes are fairly small, so it's usually about 14 people per class, but you're going to have classmates that are not only athletes, but they could be part of student government. They could also be part of our competitive gaming club. So it's everyone at Mitchell usually has multiple different ways that they're involved, whether that's in more leadership roles or more member roles, but definitely varies for each student to student, and it allows students to have like a more broad kind of approach to their interests.
Okay, great. So you said 500 undergraduate students there.
Yes,
Nice. So that, yeah, I imagine that kids really get to know one another.
exactly.
And faculty and staff. Can you expand a little bit more on the campus culture there?
Sure.
You obviously said like athletics a little bit, but like how many clubs and et cetera that you
Yeah.
offer?
So we have over 40 different clubs, some of them being student government. We have a campus activities board. We have a competitive gaming club. We also have smaller clubs, such as like because we're such a small community, it really is easy to build a club at Mitchell. So, for example, when I was first a student in 2017, we didn't have a competitive gaming club, but I know the president and the founder of the competitive gaming club because it's actually one of the bigger clubs that we have on campus now. So it's even though it's a very small school, there's so much room for bigger opportunities just because we have those kind of resources for our students. In regard to like professor atmosphere, our class sizes are very small, so there's really no lecture-based classes. It's mainly like roundtable discussions, different pod work. They have also different types of group activities and such. Like sometimes when I was especially a student, they would have like classes outside sometimes. My first year, they had some field trips during the first year experience program to learn about different professionals in the area. So they have definitely a more hands-on and different learning approach in regards to their class sizes compared to a bigger university.
Great. So with the class, what it's like dynamic. Obviously, 14 kids is quite a small classroom. That's even smaller than some of our classes here at Westmore Central. And then you don't have any lectures, so it's really like hands-on. So it'd be like it sounds like it'd be beneficial for a student that really needs that like more individualized attention rather than
Exactly.
like sitting and listening.
Exactly. There are some classes that I wouldn't call them lecture based because it's still very discussion based. Like for example, like history can be a hard kind of class to teach in those kind of like pod work. Like it's an easier class to teach in regards to more discussion based. So it really depends on what the professor is teaching our students in, along with the students' interest. So like for example, if you're more of a health science major, you're going to take a lot more science classes, which is a lot more hands-on learning in the labs. While a sports management major like myself, you're going to have more of outside the classroom work in regards to like working with different athletic programs and understanding like what kind of role you want it to be within the athletics department. So like that specific program, you can go into many different branches. So like you can go into coaching, you can go into physical education teaching, athletic administration, parks and recreation. So a lot of our programs, actually a majority of them, are based to have such a generalized approach so that we can address all the students' interests.
Okay, that's great. Do you offer a lot of like internships and placements and stuff on campus for students to kind of get more experience?
Yeah, so all of our students are required an internship before they graduate. In regards to the kind of required hours, it would depend on the major. For example, I had mine within the athletics department. I worked alongside of the basketball coach, and I kind of understood the more of back of the house in regards to practice and running a team. So like a lot of recruiting, game operations, those different types of things that aren't necessarily quite easily seen from an athletic point of view. So, but I know students that are studying marine and environmental science, and they have their internship at the Mystic Aquarium. I also know students who are studying criminal justice and have their internship at the local courthouse. So it does vary depending on your major. And our integrative career development program also expands a lot for our students in regards to learning what their students are interested in and pairing them with an internship that would correlate with that. So I'm trying to think of the best kind of example. I have this one student that he was a year behind me, and he wanted to go into sports broadcasting. And we do have Radio Mitchell, which is a radio station that Mitchell has for our students to be able to help run. But he wanted more of like a professional athletic team's perspective. So he actually did his internship with the Norwich or Sea Unicorns. So he was able to have that kind of more even though it was minor league baseball, that kind of professional aspect of running a stadium and understanding how to broadcast during those kinds of high pressure events. So we have 30 or 300 plus partners in not only regionally, but also nationally for our internships. So definitely phenomenal opportunities for our students.
Yeah, that's great, especially 300 partners for 500 students. So there's a lot of options for kids, and that's I appreciate how you require that, because it's not always a requirement. Obviously, it's strongly encouraged to get that work experience, but the fact that you make it a requirement, and then you have, you had mentioned there's the Career Development Center, and they help the students with their placement and making sure it's right fit.
Exactly. And the nice thing about that department too is that it helps students all 4 years at Mitchell, also when they graduate. So their first and second year, it's mainly going to be introducing the whole concept of the department. And then their second year, it's mainly focusing on building those crucial documents like resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, things to kind of understand about meeting different people in the professional world. Helping understand networking, informational interviews. Their third year and fourth year are designated specifically for their internship primarily. I did mine my junior year, but I know some students that do theirs in the summer of between their junior and senior year. It really depends on the student's pathway. And then their fourth year, they have a designated class called Senior Seminar, which helps them understand on how to apply to a job outside of graduation, what jobs are appropriate for them to apply to, what jobs that they might be looking into. So it's really kind of helped discover for the students to see what their actual goal is and how to kind of get to that goal.
That's awesome. Do you, are students required rather to attend those seminars to help with like the resume building and all of that? Like, is that part of your curriculum? I know that you said there's a senior seminar, but each year are they required to participate? It's not like an option.
So during certain classes, they'll have that kind of introduction. So during their first year, we have a first year seminar, which is kind of designated to help students kind of navigate the college environment, not only socially, but also academically. And that's why they'll have different departments from all over campus, integrative career development, our library services, like everybody comes in and helps our students kind of understand that. And that's kind of when that role will start to play in. Their sophomore and junior year, their sophomore year is primarily more in regards to their intro classes to their major. So depending on the student and whenever they declare a major, they'll have that kind of intro class to introduce them to how the integrative career development will help them in their specific major. And then later on, their junior year is typically when they start looking at internships, but they'd be helped and guided by their academic advisor. So they have plenty of support on campus in regards to kind of getting them to the right direction and in order to graduate in their goal for whatever that student may be.
Great. Yeah, no, that's such good support, obviously, and kind of making sure obviously it continues through the 4 years and kind of builds on itself. Can you tell me a little bit about, you had mentioned academic advisor. does each student like get assigned to someone, and kind of what is their role at Mitchell College?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different at Mitchell than it is at other schools. So Mitchell has a centralized advising model, which in kind of easier terms, it is where your academic advisor is going to be your like main support system once you become an enrolled student. So for example, signing up for classes, it's not like other schools where you sign onto a portal at midnight and you click on the classes that you want. You're going to actually have a scheduled meeting with your advisor. They'll sit down with you and look over what the course catalog is for that specific semester. They'll see what you have on your checklist before you graduate to make sure that you're able to graduate with the correct prerequisites, along with to continue your education to graduate on time. So they're the type of advisors where you'll see them kind of popping into your classes, like walking around the academic buildings, popping into the cafeteria and having their lunch there, coming to athletic games. So you'll see them all around campus because everyone at Mitchell is very supportive in regards to every aspect of being a student.
That's great. What's the minimum amount of times a student's required? Well, I guess 2, right? But do they meet with their advisor more than that? Because I guess signing up for classes, but are they required to meet more than that?
It's really dependent on the student because every student learns differently and every student requires different support. So, for example, when I was a student, like I wouldn't necessarily pop in there a lot more, but my friends typically did too. Like if they got a really good grade on a test, like they'd go and show their academic advisor because their academic advisor may have known that they were struggling in that class or there was a concept that wasn't as easily to grasp for them. So it really does vary, and the best way for me to explain it, it's like having a mentor or a parent on campus or like an older sibling, just because like they're going to tell you like when you need to get your stuff together, and they're also going to tell you when you're doing really well. So it's overall, like it's very similar to like a school counselor in regards to high school, but it's at a different level because students have that more kind of different class schedules and different kinds of free time than you would in high school.
Does the academic advisor monitor the student's grades like a counselor might in high school? Or is that like if the student comes and kind of shares? Are they responsible for that aspect or not really?
It's a little bit of both. So, for example, we have a system at Mitchell where we have early academic reports. We call them EARs. And if there's any reason why a professor may think that a student may not be doing as well as they can be, for example, to not turning in assignments, not coming to class, like those different types of things, they're going to give the advisor a flag, which basically means to contact the student and see if something's going on. Because if it's, yes, it may be affecting that one class, but it could also be affecting a lot of others too. So just kind of having that flag allows the academic advisor to be like, oh, like they're not doing so great, let me check in on them. But then again, like if a student is typically so used to having like A's and B's and they happen to have a C one semester, it may not be something that the professor sees different in the student's behavior because it's not like the high school classroom where you have them all year long. Like they only really know them for a few weeks. So that's when really it would be the student's kind of perspective to come and check in, because even though the student's still in good academic standing, it may not be to the student's terms. Does this make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's really cool that they do the ERA. Is that what
yes.
So,
EAR, yeah.
EAR, to just make sure that like kind of note that a student might be struggling. That's very unique. I haven't heard of that before.
And professors do that all throughout the school year, but specifically more during EAR period. But they can do it within like any time of the semester. So it just kind of being that support system, and you will have. It may sound intimidating, but there's always going to be somebody looking out for you at Mitchell. So it's in a way like if you're the best way for me to explain it, like it's as long as you know the resources to go to at Mitchell and you know to kind of ask for help, even if you can't define what you need help with, but you know that like you're struggling in this class, you don't necessarily know why, and you don't necessarily know how to fix it. As long as you're able to vocalize that you're having, like you're struggling, there's usually somebody out there, especially your academic advisor, who can connect you with the right resources to get help. So trying to think of the best example. That's kind of how our accessibility services are too. So in college, it's a little bit different than high school. So college, you have, it's not a 504 IEP. You would have like different accommodations for the classroom. So, or residentially. So you'll go through accessibility services specifically from Mitchell or whatever institution the student goes to. It's usually named relatively similar, but can be different. But specifically at Mitchell, we a lot of our population uses our academic supports. About 40% do. And with that, majority of those who have academic supports may also have in-classroom accommodations. So the best kind of wording that my colleague, her name's Antaya, she's the accessibility services coordinator. She said that even though a student may not always necessarily be able to define what a student needs, as long as they can identify what they're struggling with or what they need assistance with, we can find usually a solution for them. So whether it's that they feel like they don't have enough time on a test, maybe they can't word that necessarily like I don't want to say properly, but word that in that specific format. They can just explain kind of, it seems like I don't have enough time to think when I'm taking a test. And those are different accommodations that students can be able to be given in the college environment. So as long as they can identify that, there's usually something that we can do to help them.
That's great. Can you share a little bit about like what are some of the top majors that are available at Mitchell?
Yeah, so our most common ones are marine and environmental science, as we're located with 2 private beaches on our campus. And then criminal justice, just because it's a very popular major, especially right now in this era. We also have all of our professors and faculty have outside work experience, so you have great networking opportunities. And then lastly, I would say is our early childhood education studies. We have a preschool on campus, so students get hands-on learning during like as early as their sophomore year, just to kind of begin that process. During this kind of recruitment period and this kind of enrollment period for the fall, a lot of students have been interested in the business management major that we're going to be up and running. It's going to be different than other programs because we have a small business on campus. We have an ice cream parlor. So during a student's sophomore year, they're going to be able to work alongside their classmates and help run that business. So hands-on experience kind of right off the bat, which is something that I think is very unique to a college environment, considering schools usually have such a bigger campus with bigger kind of enrollment, but Mitchell's still very small. So you have those opportunities that you may not always have somewhere else.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like, again, just hands-on experience.
Yes.
Everywhere you turn, right?
Exactly.
What kind of student do you typically accept? I don't know if you have like a general, but like as far as like, what are you looking for, I guess, when you're reviewing an application?
Yeah, well, we're looking for students who kind of take initiative in their education process. So even if a student didn't do so great necessarily in high school, but they're kind of ready to learn and ready to kind of like get ready for that kind of next step in their adulthood. That's kind of something that we're looking for. We're also just looking for students who are involved, as we are a small campus community. So that's really how you kind of develop yourself in a personal and professional growth, is kind of getting involved in different things, putting yourself in kind of, I don't want to say uncomfortable situations, but situations you wouldn't normally see yourself in, just to kind of grow as a leader and grow as an individual.
Great. Can you share a little bit about scholarship opportunities? Are you, and I believe you're test optional.
We are, yes.
So then like if that impacts scholarships at all, and then financial aid. So just looking at like kind of the financial aspect of college.
Yeah. So we are test optional. It doesn't have any effect on the scholarship rating process. We do have a few different scholarship kind of categories. We have merit aid, which gets involved or evaluated during a student's application process. It's evaluated on a few different things. So it's the rigor of the student's curriculum, the grade trends that the student has throughout all 4 of their years, their academic GPA, and their extracurricular involvement. So there's a few different factors, because we see that students have, especially in this time period in this graduating class, is that especially with COVID, different other family emergencies, like it has a toll on your academics. So we do notice that as kind of the students arise within that class. So that's something that we do take in consideration. In regards to after that merit aid process, we do highly encourage our students to complete their FAFSA, as that's kind of how we see what students are eligible for scholarships. So we take, our financial aid department takes their application along with their FAFSA and sees what they're eligible for. So for example, last year we had a Connecticut state grant. So if a student lived in Connecticut, they'd be eligible for that grant. So we would be able to grant that to them. So even though a student doesn't have that kind of knowledge of what we have as an institution, that's something that in our process we filter through before we release packages for our students. Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's a you know, an important piece, unfortunately, like to consider, obviously, just kind of understanding that aspect of the college process. So it's nice to know, obviously, scholarship opportunity, it's merit, and then also looking at the financial aid that you guys consider.
Yes.
Different aspects of that process as well. How important would you say the essay is for students' college application?
So we do not have an essay requirement. So it is optional. I think that personally, like I feel like I learn a lot more about a student within an essay, but it's not a requirement for the college admission process for us. I think that like overall, if students apply through Common App, which we have 2 different ways to apply, which I can talk about in a second, but their Common App is automatically going to prompt them to write an essay, while our other application does not require our students to. So while it can be helpful in your application process, it wouldn't be a requirement for us.
Oh, that's nice, because I think a lot of times students find, obviously a lot of schools do require the essay, so that's unique that you don't. But then also I think it can be intimidating sometimes for students to write that essay.
Exactly.
And hard. So it's nice that you give them a bit of an option. So if they don't have that, because I think the essay allows students to kind of showcase who they are. Like you said, it's helpful in that. What do you look for? Like, how does a student stand out if they weren't going to submit?
Yeah.
Say.
So typically, because we're such a small school and we have a very it's like a committee review for all of our applications. So if we're looking to learn more about a student, we usually try to schedule a phone call with them, just to kind of understand kind of who they are as a student, what their passions are, like what their goal is for college. Just kind of a casual conversation to kind of understand the student more as an individual as opposed to an applicant. So I would say that that's kind of one thing that we do as a replacement of an essay, just because we overall, like we're looking for students kind of as a whole, as opposed to somebody who's very book smart or somebody who's super involved. So we kind of look for a mixture of those things. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And you had mentioned a minute ago just that there was 2 different ways to apply. I don't know if
yes. So the first way to apply is our Common App. The Common App, I feel like, is very useful for students who are looking to apply to multiple schools. If you're looking to apply to just a kind of handful of schools and not every school is on Common App, we have our own application. It's called Unique Minds. It is a mobile application, so it's synced, able to be filled out on your phone. It also takes students about 3 to 5 minutes to complete. So if you're looking to submit an application fairly quickly, that's probably your best way to do it. The Common App is very long, and I think that like that's both a great thing and it can be kind of a downer for some things, just because if like you're trying to get through the admissions process, it can really hold you up kind of in certain scenarios. But overall, either way is a great way to apply for our school. But all we would need supplementary to an application in regards to Mitchell admissions would be their high school transcript. So just the application and your high school transcript. But
Okay, great. And then you'd reach out to them if you wanted to have a phone call just to kind of like get to know them a little bit more.
Yep. So, and typically, because of how small of a school we are, if students, we usually invite students for visits because we do visits throughout the weekdays. We also do some on Saturdays. And then we also do different open house opportunities, different accepted students days, just to kind of meet the other people that would be coming into your class. And I think that overall, like probably my best advice that I can give any student looking into college would be to visit as many schools as you possibly can, just because overall, like I think that going to a school and seeing it all kind of on their website and understanding kind of what their mission statement is, overall, if you don't go to the campus and you figure that that's not really the environment that you see yourself in, you may not necessarily succeed somewhere as opposed to somewhere you really saw yourself at. So any school that a student's interested in, I highly recommend visiting, even if it's just for a tour, just to meet people that are there, to understand if you'd kind of fit in that environment.
Great. That's great advice. That was one of my questions, is what's a piece of advice. So for that, and that's definitely good advice to try to get on campuses as much as possible. Yes. And on that note, can you tell us a little bit, you said that obviously we know the size of the school and that you have 2 private beaches on campus. I noted that. So if you can share, what's the surrounding area like? I'm not familiar with.
Yeah. So New London is a very, I don't want to say a small community because so I grew up around here. I grew up in a like farmer town in Ledyard. We have 2 casinos local to New London, and one of them is in Ledyard. And we have many different forms of transportation in regards to New London. There's many small businesses. There's different kinds of events that they have within the New London community. For example, in September, they did like a education appreciation parade. So they had like different types of things to get the community involved. They do have like kind of wings places. They have pizza places. They do like Sail Fest every summer. So like we're located right on the Thames River. So like how we have the 2 private beaches, but they'll do like a big like festival and like circus there. So we have like a small downtown strip too. So that has a few different cool places as well. But in the surrounding area as too, we have the train station, which is Amtrak. So you guys are located in Jersey, I believe, correct? Mm-hmm. So you guys should have like a train station probably fairly local to you guys that would probably go to our station, because all down the East Coast is Amtrak, I believe. And then we also have 2 airports local to us too, about an hour away from each distance. So one's TF Green in Rhode Island, and the other one's Bradley International in Hartford. So it's kind of 2 different ways to travel. We have rideshare pretty much all over New London. So Lyft, Uber, different private taxi services. But yeah, so there's many different food spots. Probably my favorites around here, they have like a cute little coffee shop on downtown. It's called Muddy Waters. It's probably one of my favorites to go.
Nice. So it's got like a kind of sounds like it has a small town.
Yeah. So where Mitchell specifically located in the New London community, it's primarily like, it's a lot of beach houses kind of near us. So because we are located right on the water, they do have, I believe, a retirement facility too. So it's a fairly quiet area that Mitchell's located in. So like when I was a student, like I felt comfortable like walking around at night and stuff like that, because it's even though it is an open campus, like there's really not too much like traffic in regards to like later times. But yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. You gave such good insight into Mitchell College for our school community. So we really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy time of the year for you with applications and whatnot. So I really, really appreciate that. And thank you so much.
Thanks. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.